I've got the boat right side up now, and I'm doing one of my favorite jobs, sanding the inside of a dippy. What I'm using is a vibrating sander. These have really come down in price. The first one I bought, was 35 years ago when a German company had a patent on this. It used to be $500 for one of these machines 35 years ago. Now you can buy one for about $100, and they're certainly a worthwhile investment. I guess the patent expired and there was no longer a monopoly on them. But the one advantage of an 8-inch rib spacing is I've got room to use this in here. On a 4-inch rib spacing boat, it's really difficult to get one of these sanders to work. Sometimes I have modified the pads. I've also made an extension to extend the pad further out so the body of the sander doesn't get in the way. But I'm just doing the bulk of this with the sander here. This is not 100% of the work I'll be doing here. The other thing I do after I've got it cleaned up is I want to make sure I get rid of all these shiny spots here, which is kind of hard to tell when you've got this big pad on top of it. So I made up this little block here. I've got some Velcro on it. You can buy adhesive back Velcro, the male part, and then this sandpaper. I have also just used regular paper and just wrapped it around in strips. But I find this little block I made up is very handy. It'll let me get a lot more control than I will with the machine. But the machine has done a majority of the work. I'm just want to make sure I've got a really nice tooth on this to make sure the varnish is going to adhere when I put it on. I'm not really concerned with the direction of the grain when I'm doing the sanding here. The main thing is to make sure I get a nice tooth. The other thing is that the machine will not do the tops of the laps. It's important to get these done because these will be a good spot where it would start to lift. I don't think the block is going to work there. I'm probably just going to have some loose sandpaper. One thing with the sander is because the paper is moving so fast, it does tend to gum it up pretty quickly. So I'll go through a lot of these triangles. But after I'm done the bulk of the work, I'll vacuum the boat really quickly and then come back with this little block here and go over the whole thing. This is a closer view of the little block I made. I just cut this out of a scrap of wood on the bandsaw. Just made it so it's easy to hold. And this is just adhesive backed Velcro. I think about that at Canadian Tire. The Velcro sandpaper in sheets is a little hard to find. This is 180 grit. And it just sticks on and it's ready to go. I'm sanding away on the inside here using my little detail sander. I've noticed the pad on this though, it's circular on the inside, which is probably to make it easier to access this bolt in the center, but the problem is it's not really putting enough support behind the paper in the center, so I'm probably not really utilizing 40% of the paper. What I've been doing is I use this center part on the block here to do the little bits I have to do by hand, but I'm going through a lot of these triangles. I think what I'm going to do is see if I can make a little bit of sponge here to give some support to the paper. So I've got just an old sponge here in the shop. Got a hole punch. I'm just going to make a circle. So I've just got this little plug here. So I'm going to push this little piece of sponge in here. You can tell it's going to have to be compressed to get the paper on here, but I think with all the vibration it's going to come out and maybe get some support on the inside. So I'm just going to try that this way and see how effective it is. So it's still loading up on the edges because I guess because I'm going on the inside of a curve, but it does seem to be wearing here. It's not like before where I just had this circle which wasn't touched. So I think that's been a good improvement. I've just got a few more hours of tedium here. What I have here is something that hasn't been made in about 40 years. It's been replaced by modern printing and vinyl stickers. This is actually anybody older than who's been around back in the 1970s or grew up then building model airplanes would remember these. This is a water slide decal. It's actually been made by silk screening paint onto a wax paper sheet. And when I go to apply this, I'll be soaking it in water, and it will basically float the film of paint off, and then I'll put it on the surface. In the case of Fisher here, when I was sanding it, somehow I guess there was some contamination underneath the decal, so it was bubbling up, and in the process of sanding, it got damaged and floated off. It was kind of like a big bubble floating there anyway. So I've got, fortunately, I do have a new one, which are available through Paul Doddington had these made back up in the 70s when you could still get these. So I have one of these. I'm going to put it on, but I can't just stick it on because in the process of sanding, it could have been part of the problem. There wasn't a smooth enough finish underneath it for this to successfully adhere, become part of the film thickness. So I've masked off the Orlock block there just in that area, and during the course of the next few days I'll probably put about 4 coats of varnish on there, so I've got a nice smooth surface to float this onto. So I'm just going to just do that little area where I've masked it off and build up that area. I find anywhere you've got a corner, you can get away with doing or there's, in this case, there's like a sharp edge. You can get away with doing just a small section. And then eventually when I varnish the whole boat, it will blend it all in. I tried not to sand it too aggressively, because if I sand it too aggressively, it's going to get a lot lighter than the rest of the boat, which has got a really nice patina on it. So these are just build-up coats. I'm not really worried about the dust. We'll probably do about 4 or 5 coats before I apply the decal, and then maybe one over top of it before I do the spray varnish on the whole inside. I've got a few coats of varnish on the Orlock now, and I've sanded it so it's nice and smooth. It'll be a nice base for the new decal. Most people over 60 would know how to deal with one of these, but most of these things you get these days are stickers, and most people, the younger people, would be trying to peel it off. So this is a water slide decal. So like the name says, I'm going to put it in some water here, and what it will do, it will soften the base glue, and it'll be ready to slide off. Usually takes a couple of minutes, and then I'll apply it. So I've got the decal. I just slid it off the paper and applied it. So now that it's on there, I'll probably let it dry for a few hours, and then I'm going to just probably put 2 or 3 coats of varnish on top of the decal, and that way there'll be a good thickness of varnish on top of the decal protecting it. And if anybody wants to varnish the boat down the road, they'll be sanding the varnish on top rather than sanding the decal off. As I've been sanding this boat, I've noticed that this is a pretty common problem on gravette dippies, where there aren't really knees holding it together like there are on a port carling boat. On a gravette boat, it's just about 2 screws, and the seat holds this boat together. But on this boat here, it looks like the fasteners into the ribs and the knees have failed. You can see here how it's going back and forth. So I think while I'm at this, I'm going to try and repair this as best I can without getting carried away. So my plan is to take a screw and fasten it from the bottom into the knee. I'm going to mask off the seat and put some epoxy here to beef this up. Hopefully that will work. To make sure it's not going to move while I'm drilling the screw, or placing the screw, is I'm just putting a strap clamp around the boat, and I'm just going to pull it together and hopefully secure it here. I don't think I'm going to be able to get it all the way in. I want to prevent it from moving without putting a lot of stress into the boat. So from here, I'm going to drill from the bottom and then put some epoxy. I think there's enough of a space between here and the knee. I can put some thickened epoxy under here. Actually, I can see where the seat is totally loose there, so this will secure that. So I'd initially thought I was going to mask the device before I turned the boat over, but I couldn't get the tape to stick. So since then, I've been cleaning the thing with the device here with, I've used a degreaser, I've used methyl hydrate, I've used a lot of different things, and I still cannot get the tape to stick. It's really just kind of floating off. I don't know. It's kind of important that I be able to mask off the device before I spray the inside. So what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to try just putting a little bit of varnish on the flange here where it's going to be under the floor. And then I'll see if I can get the tape to stick to the varnish. I just got some old varnish. I'm just going to go around the flange here. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it is important that I am able to have some plastic over the device fairly well secured, because when I'm spraying it, in effect I'm going to be blowing a lot of air, and if the plastic isn't stuck, it's going to just start blowing around and sticking into everything else and making a mess. So this won't be visible. I see there's already a run on the device here, probably where somebody was varnishing the boat before. Little dribble on there, but hopefully this will help the tape stick. This is a small area where I put some varnish on the flange. Just trying to get some tape to stick, so I'm just going to try this piece of tape on here on the where I varnished it, and that is successful. So it is going to hold, so I'll be okay there. I just noticed on here, there's no way I can get the tape to stick. It's just too slippery. I've got most of the inside of the hull done, but I'm looking at this and the varnish is a little thin on the deck, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to, probably before I spray the entire boat, I'm going to just go over and give the deck one extra coat. So I'm going to do that today, and then I'll use the Pettit flagship varnish, which dries really hard, really fast. It'll be dry enough to sand in the morning. But I'm just looking at this decal on the front deck. It's still pretty well adhered. I just noticed it's got some edges, so I've been going over the deck with this this random orbit sander. Really makes a nice job of getting things flat. But I don't want to damage the decal. There's probably only a couple of coats of varnish on it, so I'm just going to gently go over that by hand, just being very careful of the edges. The oar lock was fairly simple because there was a small area where I could just mask it off and isolate that section to build up the varnish. A little more difficult if I go through the decal on the deck here, so I'm being very careful with this. So now I want to go over the rest of the deck with the sander here. I'll just go around this area because it's already been sanded, and then I'll put an extra coat on the deck, probably the deck and the inside of the combing. I find with varnish you can't really just do a spot in the middle. Usually it's usually easiest if you can find an edge to break it at. So the combing will be included with the deck, but I'm not going to do the inside of the hull this time. It'll only get done once, but the deck will have an extra one coat on it, or maybe two. I've got one fairly heavy coat on the deck. I've noticed there are a lot of spots on the gunnel here and where it's been rubbed through, and the varnish was pretty thin on the deck. I think it oxidizes quicker on the deck under the sunlight. So it didn't take that long to do that. I think it'd probably be a good idea after this dries. I'll probably give it another sand tomorrow or the day after and give it another build-up coat. And that way when I spray the entire boat, there'll be a nice film thickness on the deck. I've also come back to the oar lock here where I've just put the decal on. And I've put one coat on top of that. So I'd like to have at least 3 coats on top of the decal to protect it. I've given the deck 2 extra coats of varnish to protect the decal and also to give it a bit more film thickness. So it's been a while since I've been sanding this. It's been sitting here for a while I've built up the varnish over the oar lock. But I'm just noticing this is a common problem. Nothing I can really do about it, but this is the dashboard. I've had this happen before. You sand it and you leave it for a while, and the oil that has impregnated itself into the wood is going to soak through, and it actually goes right through the varnish and sits on top of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe this with some methyl hydrate, clean it, and sand it again. But I can almost guarantee that a month from now the new varnish will be on it, and this oil will probably be forming a film on top of the new varnish. There's really nothing you can do about it, even if you do strip it down to the bare wood. I think I had mentioned before I was going to mask the device off with some plastic before I flipped it over, but anyway, then I started thinking about it. The plastic really generates a lot of static and it likes to make the dust stick to it, so I'm going to finish my sanding and then I'm going to vacuum it, get rid of all the dust, and then I'm going to put the plastic on. That way I won't be attracting a bunch of dust into the plastic. It's probably not as much of an issue if you're brushing, but when you're spraying, you've just got to make sure there's nothing that's going to be blowing around as you're spraying it. So this represents quite a bit of sanding here on the inside, done it with a machine and then gone over it by hand. Up in the coaming here, a really nice little detail on these boats I really like is this little molding here. I found sandpaper is a little hard, so what I use on areas like this, just to make sure I'm putting a tooth into the varnishes, this is a Scotch-Brite pad, a maroon. I think it's a medium grit, but I find this does a really nice job of looking after detailed contours like this. And the bilge here has got a couple of extra coats on from before, but fortunately that's all going to be below the floorboards because it's certainly not as pretty as the sides of the hull. This varnish is still wet, so I'm not going to get too close to it. I've just finished spraying 3 quarts of varnish on this boat. I just find that spraying is so much more efficient than brushing. It takes hours of back-breaking labor bent over a boat like this to varnish the inside, and every time you hit a rib, you're going to create a run, or the brush is going to unload. But I find the varnishes, or spraying varnish is really something that's taken me a long time to master. It's a lot of variables, whether you thin it or not, what size of a tip you use, what the air pressure is. A lot of different variables. But anyway, it's it's looking pretty good. I'm just going to walk away before I touch anything or make any more dust in it.